So this video is going to be about how gentrification, because I feel like we don't talk about gentrification. It's really affecting especially black people. I live in New York City. I'm from a place called Red Hook in New York City. It was quiet. It wasn't the most safe place, but it was like a quiet place where everyone knew each other, had each other's back. But now it's like totally gentrified. Everything is high. These rich white people are living there and just looking down on everyone, and just everything is up, and I can't afford to live there unless I live in like the hood, and it's just really sad. And then I know it's happening like New Orleans and Miami and California. It's just happening everywhere. So this video is going to be about how gentrification is undermining the notions of black communities and destroying black business. And this article is published by the Atlanta Black Star. You can check out their website, atlantablackstar.com, for the article, and I think it's in the business section. And it's just a story about a lady named Lori Shepherd. Well, the beginning is, and it's about how she was a small business owner in Oakland, California for years. And due to Uber's decision to move within 2 blocks of her shared office space and the construction and limited parking, she had to change up significantly how she worked. Instead of always working in a shared space, she had to unfortunately work at a black-owned cafe, but the cafe was closed and given an eviction notice for contractors, and now the space is gone. And she was talking about how the impact for her has been profound, and for decades, Oakland has been the front of black culture in the West, the founding hub of the Black Panther Party, and the hometown of the Celtic great Bill Russell, and the former Atlanta mayor, Maynard Jackson, and Pointer Sisters. The black city has lost almost 25% of its black residents from 2000 to 2010, according to the U.S. Census. While this is in part due to relaxing the previous barriers to integration in other areas and class motion within the black community, the phenomenon can also be blamed on gentrification. So they're intentionally or unintentionally pushing out of residents in a community through improvements to infrastructure is fucking crazy. So what this is basically saying is that the slow decay of the urban black community as known today in terms of gentrification is being lost. Black businesses is going down, the black population is moving away, and business and presence is like leaving places that were like historically black and all black, and kids are going away to college and coming back to a place they don't know. That's happened to me. I went away to college, came back to where I wanted to live, and I couldn't afford it. And all these, I was gonna buy. I saw a loft for rent called the loft for rent. Lofts for $4,000 a month. Bitch, where? So then like 18 people live in a loft. That's from like the Midwest, and then prices go up because 18 white people live in a loft. It's just like crazy. It's more than disheartening to put this in perspective. So imagine a place like Atlanta losing 60% or more of its black population to white newcomers. So imagine that. Imagine if New York, over 60% of all the black people left, and then all the white people came in and had no respect for the existing culture of the black people who live there. So for example, Oakland gentrification has been evidenced by white people who move next door to churches with long histories in the city, and then they call to complain about the church's quiet practice, and the church has been there for 50 years and people live there for 5, and they're complaining that the church music is too loud for them. The soul has shifted to hardly any soul at all in these communities. So gentrification in black businesses. In 2014, Spike Lee went crazy about gentrification in New York, which seemed to be redefined by black communities being wholesale. So black communities are becoming wholesale places where you can come in and buy a lot of land, sell it for high prices, and move on. That's fucking crazy. Why did it take gentrification to make schools better? Why did it take gentrification to make more police protection in Bed-Stuy, Harlem, and like Red Hook, Fort Greene, Lower East Side? All of these places, if you're from New York, you know these are historically poor places where a lot of minorities live, and now that there are white people living there, it's more cops. Even though people have been calling for cops, there's more nicer places to live, higher rents. Why is the garbage getting picked up more regularly now? We've been here. Spike Lee, this is one Spike Lee's rant. You're talking about people's property change, but what about the people who are renting? They can't afford it anymore. You can't afford it. So say you live in a place. So for example, my boyfriend's mother lives in Best Side. She has a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment that she's lived for over 35 years. And now that Best Side is like the new Williamsburg, all these white people are coming in, and now her rent went up. So she had to come out of retirement just to work, just to afford places where she lived her whole life, which is crazy. A lot of people I know are moving to like Pennsylvania because they feel like Pennsylvania is cheaper, Pennsylvania is nicer, it's better. But I'm from here, and this is where I want to stay, and I can't become a Pennsylvanian, if that's even a word. So people want to live in Fort Greene, people want to live in Clinton Hill, people want to live in Lower East Side. People want to live in Williamsburg. I remember when these places were like the most dangerous places in the world to go. I'm from Brooklyn, and I wouldn't even go to Williamsburg because I was scared I would come back cut up. But now you can't even afford to live in fucking Williamsburg because the hipsters. On 125th Street in Harlem, for example, a large white-owned big box stores are appearing where only a decade or two before where black-owned mom-and-pop stores stood. For many, gentrification has raised Harlem, they knew, and replaced it with only I can't even say this word. So Harlem went from a black hub where poets and musicians gathered to now less black. They want to even rename Harlem to So-No or So-Up or something like that. Something like So-Hub, because they don't like the name Harlem. We can't allow white people to keep erasing history. In 50 years, all these neighborhoods will have different names. Like Red Hook now, they want to call it South Brooklyn. Clinton Hill is basically Fort Greene, and they just changed it to Clinton Hill. It's like the craziest shit I've ever seen. All right. So gentrification typically happens when infrastructure or material changes to a neighborhood reach a point that the neighborhood is now attractive to residents of higher class. This can happen in multiple ways. In the case of Harlem, which was the capital of Black America and a home of Black intelligence, it was a tax and a change of zoning laws that opened up the enclave to urban pioneers, young whites that chose to reject suburbia and return to the city. Things, but no things. As the population with more disposable income moves in, property owners respond by improving the properties in the neighborhood to attract newer tenants and raising prices or leases and rents. This, in effect, causes a squeeze out of residents that already live in the neighborhood and cannot afford the rising rents, forcing them to leave homes and their families they have lived in for decades. For traditional black businesses, the effort of this can be twofold. First, many black businesses in gentrified areas find their leases to be illegally broken or challenged by property owners desperate to cash in. Second, that those who somehow hold on their leases now face a customer base radically different from the one they had previously had that may be at odds with the products being served, increased competition, and raises the price of key services. So, for example, I remember in Harlem there was like a soul food place. The soul food place didn't lose their business. Their rent went up and their customers changed. So meaning that instead of having like the steady flow of customers you had every day, now you have these hipsters that come in and want to try Southern food and want to know how did you make that chicken. And they don't come in as often because it's not their. They'd rather sit in a cafe and drink coffee and have internet service. And then you get more competition. So instead of having like 15 mom and pop black owned businesses, you have like McDonald's, Popeyes, KFC, White Castle. And how do you compete with people just throwing out product that's not even good for you, but it's cheap and it's fast, cheap and it's fast, it's cheap and it's fast, it's funded by large corporations? How do you compete with that when you're a small business that, and most of your clientele is moving out because they can't afford to live there, or they can't afford to buy your shit because their rent's so high? This has led to a 30% of black-owned businesses disappearing in New York City from 2007 to 2017. Per a report of the 25 largest cities in the United States, only Detroit and Jacksonville, Florida have comparable numbers. So think about this. Detroit is in chaos. It's falling apart. Well, the black part of Detroit is. I don't know if you realize that the white part of Detroit is still fine. The rich people are still good. The middle class people are still good. It's just the poor people are the ones that are suffering. So this matches up with Detroit's numbers, which what hope does this have for us that it matches with Detroit abandoned houses? Detroit is paying people they're giving them houses to come live in their space because all of their houses, it's just millions of houses sitting there. How about you just take all the homeless people in the world and send them to Detroit and let them live in these houses? But I don't know. When black-owned businesses decline, I'm alarmed. When local residents are priced out of their neighborhood, I'm frustrated. We have to do better. New York City, we have to do better. We need to focus on real community level wealth creation, meaning that we need to find ways to let the people in the community create wealth for themselves and not just buy them out or squeeze them out until they're no longer here. We need to talk about gentrification. We can't just focus on raising rents or increasing cost of living. We also need to ensure that local residents gain access to new jobs and higher incomes. In New York City, African Americans are 22% of the population, but only 3% of local business owners. A reason for the decline may be the declining black population in the city. Many of our traditional African American neighborhoods, black neighborhoods I like to say, are now being gentrified or have been gentrified. I don't know what that means. In reality, the results of aggressive radical policies and racially motivated migration patterns. So, for example, Syracuse sits in the center of New York State. The city has been an important transportation hub for most of the nation's history, with the Erie Canal being due primarily to simplify the transferring of Syracuse salt to New York City into the Mississippi River Basin. The ready positioning made the city and its metropolitan area an industrial juggernaut in the earlier part of the 20th century. And the higher education leaders in the late part, housing more than 10% of major universities and colleges within an hour drive to the city, including Colgate, Cornell, and Syracuse University. But Syracuse is also distinguishedly one of the American major cities with the highest rate of extreme poverty concentrated among blacks and Hispanics. Isn't that crazy that this state that was so important to the development of this nation, all these people lived there for decades and they've been helping with this development of this nation, are the most poorest in the nation. Like, how do we not combat that? How do we not fight that? How do we go about our lives every day spending money on frivolous shit and name brand shit that we don't own for our people, that our people don't get a dime of, and we just act like shit is okay? I don't know if you ever saw a picture. It's like a picture of a boat and it's up and it's sinking, and it's black people over here and it's like better black people over here that's doing better, and they're like, oh, I'm glad I'm not over there sinking. And they're over there throwing water out, and they sitting up there like just watching them throw water out like it ain't me. But the boat is sinking, and like they're at the tip of it, and the whole shit is going down. That's how black people are right now in America. They think they're doing good. They're buying weaves. I'm sorry to judge. They're buying shit they don't need. They're not saving money. They're just buying. They're consumers. They're consuming stuff while their neighborhoods are being taken away. We need to do better. The sense of being poor is growing up, and growing up around other poor creates a sense of I can't say none of these words. De-isolation. A lack of critical infrastructure such as supermarkets, violence, declining graduation and college rates, less possible of class promotion from generation to generation is making it normal that you don't have to do well. You just have to sustain. You don't have to try. When I die, you'll get this apartment. You can live for another 50 years in the hood. You can raise, and it's like the generations are not, before they would try to get better. Now it's like we're just staying the same. We're not going up, down. And I'm not talking about everybody, but I'm talking about a majority of us. And if I'm not talking about all of us, we should be worried. We should really be worried. Let me see how long this video is, because I'm going in 11 minutes. I'm going to keep going in. Forgive me. If you want to stop, you can stop here, like, subscribe, and comment. But I'm going to keep going in. All right. Nationwide, the number of higher poverty neighborhoods and the population living within them has risen at an alarming pace. So the middle class black people are starting to become the poor black people and living in the poor neighborhoods, which is not doing anything for the black population. I hope you guys just got that. I hope this didn't go over your head. So the block people are moving back to the hood, and generations are not escaping the hood. And instead of us making the hood as livable as possible, because hey, these are our people, we are fucking it up more and fucking each other up and shooting, killing, and hurting each other and just having more babies. I'm not saying that poor black people shouldn't have babies. I'm saying that if you're not in a good situation, you should try your best to not bring anyone else into the situation until we figure out shit for ourselves. You know what I mean? If that sounds selfish, please let me know. I know people are going to tell me, but so ACS data before the financial crisis took hold, high poverty center tract increased by nearly 1/3. So since people are doing worse off and moving and are becoming poorer, ACS cases are going up. And a key component of Syracuse's poverty is the lack of black-owned businesses. Areas such as the Upper Valley, which are predominantly black, have seen a steep bend off of non-white owned business since 1969. And then the city ranked them the 72nd in poverty amongst the nation. So this community that has a lot of black businesses is high in poverty. So as a result of this, in 1969, Syracuse fell victim to gentrification run amok. And the city, because like I told you, black communities are for sale for wholesale prices. So it's like, why live in Manhattan? You can go live in a whole ass community, own a lot of businesses, and live there, work there for way less. The reason I bring up Syracuse is because this is around a time when a lot of the whiter counterparts started moving to the suburbs, to southern states, like more to the suburbs, and they left the black people in these populated areas designated as slumlands to property developers. So like if you look at where a lot of hoods are, they're in places people don't want to really live. Like Red Hook, for example, is like all the way to the edge of Brooklyn to the water, like no one really pays attention to it. But now they want these lands back because they realize that these lands are by the oceans, are quiet, are have a lot of open space, and they already fucked up everything else. It's like no grass left in Manhattan, so let's go to Brooklyn and take away the grass from there. Racial barriers have created an overcrowded condition that many experts felt may someday lead to trouble. It will. These people, the poorer the black people and minority people get, the more they're going to be mad, angry. I just hope that they don't take it out on each other, and I hate to say they take it out on everyone else, but I feel that it's better to take it out on everyone else or work together to create something for each other. So, real estate and property developers have been exploiting the weakened view on black neighborhoods and hoping that taking action could restart the growth rate and make them rich with larger and richer citizens. And they're trying to push black populations down south again. So all the black people came up, they're trying to push it back down south. The city core will allow for residents to work in the city but live outside of it. So now they're going to want you to come in, service them, and leave. And that's what a lot of people are doing. They're moving to PA. They're moving. I know people who live in Pennsylvania and drive to New York City every day, 3 to 4 hours just to work and drive 3 to 4 hours back. 8 hours in the car is not life. And they're still paying rent to white people who own the properties that now live here, which is really fucking weird. And then they're making it harder for black people and minorities to get home loans, made property ownership less of a possibility for black residents, as their rentals banned in specific neighborhoods. Worse, the whites' flight to the suburbs encouraged development around the city instead of in it. Despite, I'm getting a little angry. So basically this article just goes into saying how people are being dispersed. Everyone's breaking apart, going different places while all these people are coming here. This is also happening in Portland, Detroit, New Orleans. Like, all this is not just a New York City, a big city thing. This is a small city thing. Alabama, Mississippi. New realities. A reality of modern day life and gentrification is that gentrification will happen. Young white professionals have rejected the notions of suburbanism, and whites' flight and are returning to cities in increased numbers. Is now on the city plan is to find a way to make this work. The way forward is not to carve out new encaves for the affluent in the cities, or to allow displacement of the existing population, but to find a way to promote communities and to encourage infrastructure improvement without raising property costs. Gentrification is not necessarily a bad thing, but the way in which it often occurs is, because it typically leads to displacement. In America, we are really good at developing places instead of people in places. Did you hear that? In America, we are very good at developing places instead of the people in the places. When investments come to benefit areas or concentrated poverty, when the people can't stay in place, then investments are a good thing. However, gentrification as a means to poverty displacement instead of poverty relief is destructive. I hope you're getting these, like, I hope you're feeling this, like, because I'm feeling this. And even people who are not economically displaced could be socially and politically displaced. It can still occur. So meaning that even if you could afford to stay, you're doing well, you can afford to stay, your whole community changes, and now you don't really fit in socially, politically. Your views of people who run where you live change. So even if you could afford to stay, everything else changes. So it's like, why stay? I don't fit in here, and I'm from here my decades. As communities increasingly change, it changes its personality as well. What was once a vibrant black community ceases to be in the light of its black residents, and businesses being driven out become something else. And I know I've been going off, but I just really wanted to push this topic, and all videos can't be 5-minute videos and fun videos. So as black people are driven, so in the past, black people were driven to these bad slum places, and now they're being forced out of them. Seems unnecessarily cruel. So they pushed us here, we figured it out, and now they're pushing us out to figure it out again. I feel like they never let us be comfortable. I feel like they have to keep us moving, to keep us from growing, to keep us from focusing. And we can't allow that to let us not focus and not grow. Because clearly they have a problem with us. And clearly they're not going to stop pushing us around. And clearly slavery is never really ended. Never really did. For those that are left due to subsidized housing or other means, what they are left with maybe is alien and foreboding as being forced to live in a new neighborhood. So even the people that have afforded to stay, I'm noticing a lot of people who live in the projects and affordable housing are going to be those people. They're kind of going to be isolated and like in their own little box and still going to be fucking with each other. The road forward continues to close. The gap continues to grow. The number of black businesses and homeowners continues to drop. So we went from 42%. So black people right now own houses to 42% compared to white people who own it 71%. However, as many cities have yet to fully recover from the Great Recessions, and as the federal government plans major rollbacks to funding to minority business development, the goal of encouraging and protecting black business in the inner city may be a difficult one to achieve. There is a gentrification wave that has taken over the nation as we come off the Great Recession, and for the first time, it is hitting black neighborhoods. You heard that? A lot of times these things don't really affect black neighborhoods, but now it's affecting black neighborhoods. Usually urban investment completely bypasses black community, but not this time. This will bring property values up. However, the question of how to safeguard the community identity must be considered. These neighborhoods were the safe havens of black communities during times of strife and great violence. They deserve to be saved. If you feel that I'm wasting my breath, please like, comment, subscribe. I know this video was really long, but I really want to talk about gentrification and not just how it affects me, but how it affects everyone all over. Like, this is something that is like coming like this. This is the United States and its gentrification just coming in. Because the people who are leaving here is going to where you are, and they're going to raise prices there because they made more here. And I don't know if you get it, but just think about the boat. We here, you here, but the whole shit is sinking. How can we do this? How can we fix this? And I'm so happy that you got this far in the video. And if you got this far, please make sure you subscribe, like, and comment. Also check out my other videos on my page. And if you want something not so heavy, you can check out my other page, Brooklyn Lexi. Lexii, where I have more fun, I try and close, and I be a typical YouTuber. But if you really want something deep, you should stay here. And I'm open to ideas. Please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and feel free to share this video. I'll see you.